Welcome to Fearlessly Made You. I am your host, Kristietobias. Joining me today are guests just striving to dominate in their personal and professional lives while answering the question, what does it mean to be fearlessly made? On this episode of Fearlessly Made You, I'm going to introduce you guys to Sid Williams-Heath, the Executive Director of the Pensacola Cultural Center, a great friend of mine, someone who I spend basically every day with, whether it's working out together or just grabbing a glass of wine, but a man who I truly love after my own heart. Sid, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
And now I'm questioning why we haven't fused the working out and the wine at the same time.
You know?
Recipe for disaster?
Or
make it interesting.
Hey, I like that.
I like it.
And maybe we do that on the podcast. Who knows, guys?
Truly, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Of course, Sid, I adore you. You know that. And truly, so one of the great things that I love about Sid is, as the Executive Director of the Pensacola Cultural Center, when Fearlessly Made You, the book came out, Sid insisted on us having the official launch here at Pensacola Cultural Center, which is where we've been filming our podcast, which has been just a wonderful, exciting experience to see all the culture in Pensacola. And the great thing about that, though, is there's such a beautiful, rich story behind that and behind Sid's story. So, before we jump in too far, Sid, yes. I want people to know about you, who you are, what really helps you to own your journey. So Sid, tell us more about you.
I love it. And one, thank you for being kind by saying I insisted you come here, because I didn't even twist the arm. I drug you here. I was like, please, please, please. And I think that's because we have very different, obviously, but very similar journeys. And I think that it all goes back to that authenticity, which Sidism or mantra or something I have to live by. I think it's so important. And because, we're young, and I think that we have to own that. Yes. And especially running a cultural center, being a gay man in a southern town, you have to have a story and you've got to own it.
Yes.
And so, that's my motif, if you will. Born in Philadelphia, Mississippi.
Yes.
Moved to New York for work, met a handsome doctor, 10 years my senior, who said, do you want to do this small town Florida thing? And I was like, it's probably not as small as where I came from. So we came here and I took over the theater within 3 months of being here. It was just exactly what I wanted to do. It called me. The timing was right. But I'm here. I'm probably the only person in this town who at least drinks as much, if not more wine than you.
There has to be one. And in case you guys didn't pick up on this, Sid, you've got a little bit of a theater background in you, a little performance background.
I do. So I certainly didn't hate a stage as a child. I was drum major of the band, which was crazy. Went to journalism school. I was actually, which you would relate to and love, a Miss America prelim judge for a bit. Yes. So I've always enjoyed.
Speaking to my pageant background.
Of course, a plug.
A little plug.
But I enjoyed the stage, but I also enjoy, and Lord knows you have to shut me up when I get started on it, it's how theater impacts people's ability to be on a stage.
Yes.
So breed Broadway singers. Sure. Yeah. That's great. We would love that. But every single day of our lives, we take these little boys and girls and we help them stand up a little bit taller or speak a little louder. And that's so important. And I think your journey has totally been about sharing that public speaking and self-confidence and being yourself is so important. And I'm so excited from a professional standpoint to have a part in that.
I love that you say that, because that is the journey, right? Being fearless, being fearlessly made is all about owning your journey no matter what it looks like. But your journey hasn't always been necessarily a positive one or even an easy one. I'd love to learn a little bit more about what has helped you get to where you are and some of the lessons that you've learned along the way.
Honey, I survived with a little help from my friends. And that friend can be Pinot or Cab or, actual girlfriends. It's interesting. We all have a story and we all have our own form of diversity that we've been bringing to the table. Yes. I'll be honest. I was fortunate to have a very lovely experience growing up, and which is probably not the same Mississippi path that a lot of my family would have. Yeah. And it was right when I was my strongest self, my best single self. I fell in love.
Oh, bless.
I know. It's the best thing that ever happened to me.
At least one of us did.
honey.
I know, it's coming.
Stolen many heart, I'm sure. But truly finding a counterpart, he's been my rock and just completely been what I needed to get through any hard time. And to take those stories and to take that experience and then offer something like a hub of culture to say, I don't care what your hard time is, I want it here.
Yes.
I want to be that safe haven, that home for you. And so it's been really lovely to help others maybe with their hardships along the way.
I love that. And something that you mentioned that I think is very interesting and unique to your story is your personal and professional life have woven very beautifully together.
For better, for worse.
Yes. Well, and I'd love for you to talk, because I know that there's so many of you out here that are thinking through how can you embed the two in a way that still allows you to be your best self and allows your husband to be his best self. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Of course, and people ask me all the time, because as executive director, while our art is very strong, of course, I pay the bills.
Right.
I have to make the money, do all the fundraising, and people all the time say, well, how did you come up with that fundraiser? Or, what was the thought behind that? And my answer is unanimously always the same. I'd like to create events or initiatives that I would want to support, that I would want to go to. I want a party that I want to have a good time at.
Absolutely.
And so that's been important. And, we lived in New York for a while. So I think kind of bringing some of that culture has been a shock, but also a lovely new experience for Pensacola. But you have to support what you do. And luckily, anyone watching this knows, especially if they're in the Pensacola area, the amount of talent that we have for this small town is absurd.
Beautiful.
It's absurd. And it's important to amplify that.
Yes.
So have a good time, infuse your personal, luckily I have a husband who I don't have to drag here. He would have been here
True.
anyway.
That is so true.
He grew up in the children's chorus because he's from here originally, and then we came back. So all of my girlfriends now come, the wine's gotten a little bit better. So, we an immersive experience.
Always important for the wine to get a little bit better.
And it's important to have a diversity of what you offer.
Yes.
So little theater, that's so cute, little kids and little theater. And we do that, of course.
Right.
But we do, classic musicals. We do stuff that's just downright dirty that may offend you or open your mind or thought provoke. We kind of run the gamut on something for everyone, which is important because I want everyone to have something here that moves them.
Yes, and let's stop there for a minute, because I love that with Pensacola. So I mentioned earlier Pensacola Cultural Center, which is really the baseline of where Sid is the executive director. But there's another aspect of that is the Little Theater.
It's so interesting, and it's quite complicated. And I think that picture gets a little bit clearer every day. So the Little Theater has been around since 1936. They've been in gymnasiums and chambers of commerce and a Quonset hut at one point. They've been around.
Wow.
But it was late 80s when the Little Theater said, okay, we got a little cash. We have a board who maybe can find some cash too. Yeah. We have all of these arts and even more specifically cultural organizations who don't have a home. Right. Let's call it 88, if you will. And 1980 and not 88 organizations, because oh my gosh, we couldn't fit that many people in here. It feels like it. Okay.
I'm glad you clarified.
And so that's when we took the venture to get the old county jail, court of record building, now turned cultural center, and took a decade. And it was a multi-million-dollar project, but we wanted to have a home for all of those people.
Yes,
we played mother hen, if you will. So at the time, and it was everything from Kaleidoscope, which is now Ballet Pensacola, to the African American Heritage Society, to the children's course, to a restaurant, Norma's, love that chicken salad. And that was important to us because we wanted to own and operate that. And then, of course, theater being what predominantly be the biggest part of the building.
Of course.
And it's been interesting because over the years, those places have gone and grown to have their own brick and mortar, which is great for them.
Absolutely.
But it's changed the vision of what a cultural center looks like. Theater got bigger. Yep. We still have ballet on the third floor. We have church on Sundays. But now instead of a landlord to so many people, we are a signature place for so many community events as the cultural center. So stay with me.
Yes.
Everything from Entrecon, Civicon, Pensacon. So you can come on Saturday night to the stamped LGBTQ Film Festival and then come for worship on Sunday morning at Liberty Church.
That is amazing.
So it's so important just to have a space that everyone's voice is heard, that you can come. As I said, you feel safe, you feel welcome. The Human Trafficking Task Force has their performances here because it's a message we have to tell. So if you've got a message and it's strong in the community, it belongs in one place. Yes. And it's the cultural center.
And I love, you say something that is so beautiful and it's so pertinent to the conversation around Fearlessly Made You and the conversation around owning your journey, which is everyone has a voice.
Yes.
and everyone's voice and their story and their message needs to be out there. And so as you think about what that is, I see exactly as you said, with the Cultural Center being a voice and helping support that voice. What else does that look like as you think forward, and where do you see that this can just continue to prosper and grow what Pensacola is?
That's a lovely question. And I think my favorite part of that answer is defining what a voice is, because honey, you and I don't need a microphone. We are loud spoken. You obviously, and I was speaking verbally, but I read the book, honey. You get your message out there, which is so important. But there are so many people who can't. And we give a voice to the voiceless so often, theater specifically, but our arts education classes, everything from the ballet, we really have that self-expression that means to get something out when words maybe quite don't do the trick.
Right.
So I think that's important. And I think we have to grow that and nurture that. So I say when I came here, if you've been to one of our performances, you know that community theater, though all volunteer, over 1,000 volunteers every year. It's insane.
That's amazing.
And set designers, actors, painters. But while that's important, it's been thriving. The quality is not community theater.
Right.
We're above that. And I say that confidently.
Yeah.
But there's been a little lack of culture in the Cultural Center. And that has been my top mission since I've been executive director here for, I guess, going on my 5th season now, which is crazy.
That's amazing.
I know. Who knew? Time flew. Oh, my God. I know. Am I getting great?
A little bit.
I know.
Never.
I know.
Never.
I'll never see it. Fix it. But so that's been one of my main missions, and we can never lose sight of that, because I think we've had a lot of success, and I'm proud of that, which is this much to do with me and so much to do with everyone else and their brains and their passions and their connections. But the second we get comfortable is when I say, okay, let's mix it up. Let's do something else.
Yes. Well, and funny you say that, because you had to mix it up this past year, right? Again, guys, let us talk about 2020, but let's again reshape the conversation around, you've already given us this beautiful story of understanding what the Cultural Center has brought to the community, adjusting and shifting so that we're including people, including those voices. And then we hit 2020.
Bum, bum, bum.
Bum, bum, bum. So where are you? What does that look like?
So we are vehemently against screens. You want to go see a movie? Go to a movie theater. You want to watch a podcast? Go to feelersmade.com. But so everything that we do is being present to, one, feel the rhythm of the music or the beat of the pulse of the actors, their tone of voice. It's honestly to connect with their story, and it can't be perfect.
Yeah.
You know, there's that vulnerability.
Absolutely.
And, you know, actors behind a screen, they can't hear the cheer from the second row, and they can't really tie you in and get the same energy that the audience is getting.
Yes.
So that's been so important to us. 2020's taken a lot of that away.
Yeah.
The second we figure things out, then a bridge goes down, or the holidays come around and you bring the cooties from your second cousin that you haven't seen in 5 years but saw for Thanksgiving, and then you brought in the building and all that kind of good stuff. So we've had to reinvent the wheel.
Yes.
So we've learned, number one, less is more.
Okay.
Which, have you met me? That's never my mantra.
That's what I'm looking at. You're like, okay, let's go there.
I know. In terms of audience, capacity is a thing. So less musicals where I need every seat sold out and I need a cast of 40 to make it bigger, and an orchestra of 40 musicians. Right. And we're doing very, very small, meaningful performances.
Interesting.
And I tell you, I don't hate it. Okay. And we'll go back. We'll do musicals, of course, again soon. But it's really let the actors, one, that they're invested now more than ever because they want to express themselves, but they're taking a risk, if you will. Absolutely. And it's more meaningful. And so our safety precautions have been insane. But the people who want to be here are here. And the people who aren't comfortable, we have found as many means as we can to also entertain them through live streaming and through, virtual Q&As and such. So we're trying to have something for everyone. Yes. But I miss the beat. I miss the in-person.
Absolutely.
We'll get there.
Well, and as you think about getting there as well, do you find yourself thinking about, well, once we are in a place where you can open up to having capacity here again, and you can open up to bringing in so many different people, are things going to look different?
Yes. Rehearsals certainly look different. I think that we will respect people's space more anyway in a non-COVID world. I think outdoor has become something that none of us really thought about and we've really owned that.
You guys have truly owned that outdoor space and the beauty of it. And for those of you that have not seen the outdoor space in the cultural center, it's this beautiful, like a terrazza, basically, that has lights above, and it's a beautiful, just kind of light colored bricking. And that sounds so simple, but it opens you up to being like you're in a fairy tale or like in a whole other area. And you guys have used it very beautifully. Don't let me take away from that, please.
No, it is in fact called the terrazza, and it's got the fountain, and it's on the most picturesque street downtown.
Yes.
And we have people come. We did a Sips and Serenades deal.
Yes.
Luckily, we're probably one of the only nonprofits that have our own liquor license. So we said we're going to use it. But outside, come who feels comfortable, open air, space out, and also still giving our performers a way to express themselves.
Yes.
And, we're always audition based. And so this has been a chance to maybe have people who haven't wanted to audition, but still have wanted to come back and share their voice. I mean, think about it. There are so many of our very, very talented youngsters to oldsters who've gone to New York for a living or Chicago or New Orleans or wherever it is who are back now.
Yes.
And they're not done.
No.
They're ready. And I said, come on.
Love it.
So the community's rallied around it, and the outdoor Sips and Serenades to the small, intimate, sing easy, like speak easy vibe that we've been having inside. It's given a new form of art.
It really has.
Can't always do theater, but we can always perform.
I love that. Well, and you bring up a really great point is when we think about Fearlessly Made You, and we've talked about this a little bit, but I want to really dive in there. I think about what it means to have that fearless existence, and and it's not necessarily that you are without fear. Let's be very honest. It's saying you don't let fear own you. And with your innovation and your team's innovation, and really thinking about how to have a voice for the voiceless, have a voice for those people who have been a little more afraid to be in a larger audience. And now it's like, okay, well, let's give you a smaller venue in this time where that's really all we can do.
Sure.
What has it looked like for you to really pursue things from a Fearlessly Made You perspective?
You can't second guess yourself. You can be wrong. Let me fix that. You will be wrong.
Yes.
And you need to be able to own that.
Okay.
We say be unapologetic, but it doesn't mean don't apologize. It means go with it full force.
I love that.
But my philosophy in my personal life, in terms of character, in terms of my profession, has always been have courage, be kind. And so go with things and go full throttle. And if it doesn't work, we'll think about it and, have the courage and the common sense to change it.
Yep.
But respect everyone. And I think that's what's so important. One, sure, theater, but two, when we think what's fearlessly made and what that looks like. And I think that we have to own our story, but also know along the way that we're in a world full of other people who are owning their story.
Yes.
And how do we own ours, but also respect theirs?
I love that.
And, you mentioned people that feel comfortable coming here. Great. And we're going to be as safe as we can for you. But people who don't, we still respect that in you, and we're going to find something for you too.
I love it. Well, and you bring up a perfect example of that, which is, as you're thinking about some of the events and the things that you've been able to do, you've brought some voices here, like you said, that have come back to Pensacola. And so, and I've had wonderful dialogue with so many of the
they
singers,
and
I adore them. But the thing that I adore about them is something that you, and I'm interested in getting your thoughts on this, that you guys have really supported here is they have this voice to be innovative and creative themselves.
Yes.
And they can let that out. But I know that that can also be hard just in some of the conversations I've had where they're still trying to figure it out. So what are your knowledge nuggets, your little pieces of wisdom or advice that you would give to someone who's trying to figure out what being fearlessly made really means?
I think the worst thing that we can ever do is try to reinvent the wheel. There are so many people before us. All of our stories are different. But there is so much wisdom out there, so many brains to pick, performance, writing, just trying to do basic taxes. People have great stories. And I think you have to be open and you have to listen to those. You have to want to.
Yeah.
And that's what we're hearing with the singers coming back that you mentioned, is that they're ready for a little reprieve. They want to come back, but they need a little solace and a little time.
Yes.
But they want to hear other stories because we're all in a COVID world together, but we're on all of this together.
Yes.
And so what have you done? How have you messed up? And how can that help me?
Love that.
How can I help you? Because Lord knows I've messed up a time or 50 today.
Yes.
So I think that that's important. And if you can't tell stories here, then you can't tell stories anywhere.
As you talk about the mess up and the mistakes that we make and the ability to tell a story from it, has there been a time for you that has been that, Oh. And how have you then shifted into that? This story is going to help someone else and it's going to help me as well. Let's move forward.
Oh my gosh. Big question. And my brain's like, what do you want to pick? What do you want to pick? What do you want to pick? I'll say something will come to me in a second specifically, but when I think of 50 immediately coming to mind, I think we just have to learn and we have to think of them as growth. No matter what the mess up is, and no matter what the specific is for you, you can't see it as a mistake.
Right.
You can't see it as something that you messed up.
Right.
You have to see it as a life experience. And the most important thing is taking something from it.
Yes.
I've taken everything from everything I do literally all the time. And it's all feedback based.
Yes.
So for example, Ride Society.
Yes.
I decided to have so much free time that I'm going to be spin instructor. We did that together.
Yes,
That's how we met.
And for those of you that don't know or don't remember, Ride Society is a spin studio in Pensacola where you basically dance on bikes in the dark.
I love it.
That is where Sid and I actually solidified our relationship.
It's true.
We danced on bikes for 2 hours straight outside.
And it felt like 200 hours.
It was a long time.
It was.
But it was beautiful.
It was sassy.
And it was sassy, but it was so freeing in the open. So talk to us a little more about that.
Well, and the direction I was going with that is that, we give feedback to everyone in this building all the time, but then to put myself in a position like that or pageantry or whatever it is, but we'll talk about Ride Society specifically. That's not my background.
No.
I've never been on a spin bike and apparently I wasn't half bad. So they were like, oh, you should do this thing. And it's interesting that people are sometimes reluctant to give you feedback because they don't know how you're going to take it.
That is so true.
I pull it. I literally pull it out of people to a fault. I want feedback. I want constructive criticism. I want to grow. I want you to be gentle, but I want you to be honest, I never want to just be complacent.
Yeah.
And I've learned a ton recently in that aspect, but also professionally. Let's call this spade a spade. I am 30. I am the leader of this organization and everyone's older than me. And so that's always interesting too. One, to give feedback, but also to really make that message clear. I want the feedback too.
Yes.
It's, titles or whatever they are, but we're all in this together. And so I think that feedback has been so important for growth, for making mistakes, and keep going.
I love that. It's interesting you say that about, being the leader, but also being the youngest person here, basically. And it reminds me of my own experiences throughout my career. And I was always that person until I wasn't. And then the feedback was so difficult. And I remember my mom, who we talk about Mama Tobias all the time.
Love her.
But she said something that was really important, which I feel like you've really honed in on, which is, you have to be someone that people want to give feedback to. And you have to open yourself up to that.
Yes.
And I feel like you have such a open and, guys, I just want to learn and I want to experience vibe. But that's a hard vibe to have.
It can be. Wine helps. But you have to mean it. You have to really want it. And I never have a lack of words to say. I love a microphone. I love a story. I love to talk.
Yes.
But it's so much more about listening.
Yes.
You have to listen. And that can be listening through reading.
Yep.
It can be listening through dinner together or just experiencing something together. But you have to listen to a story. And we're so guilty of this. How many times has someone been talking and instead of listening, you're coming up with what you're going to say next?
Every time.
It drives me crazy. And I literally like, oh, are you not even listening to me?
Exactly.
We can't do that.
No.
You have to listen, reflect, then go. And so I hope that people listen and really understand that because you're never going to grow. You're never going to be able to take someone's story and then project your own and grow your own if you're not listening.
That is so true. And that can be such a beautiful part of understanding that fearless journey as well. Is there's the understanding that your journey can't be done alone.
Yes.
And you can't do that without listening to the other voices around you and what that looks like. And the thing that I love about your journey is you're so open and transparent about, you didn't necessarily come from difficulties or struggles, but the ability to lead and to be part of an organization that's trying to break open things that haven't been broken open before.
Yes.
That is a difficulty. And that is something that's constantly moving and innovating. So as you think about that, not to add pressure, but how does that make you feel from a pressure standpoint?
Of course.
Do you feel that mounting for you?
I tell you, I'm a weird human. I worry and I have pressure all the time, but it treats my body just differently. And the Lord puts things on you that you can bear and, maybe not on someone else who couldn't bear it. And I don't know if I can just bear a little bit more or if it's just my calling to be a change somewhere.
Yeah.
this much to do about me.
Yes.
But it's making sure that you get the right people at the table.
Yes.
And especially because, I help cultivate the board. Thanks for joining the board.
Here for you.
Thank you. It's voluntold.
Yes.
Love it.
Loved it. I loved it.
Thank you.
Yes.
But those are so important, that the relationships that you want to cultivate, again, we talk about getting stagnant and being like, oh, well, I've done something really good here. We're great. Let's bam. No, you have to always be going. And it can't be pressure. It has to be opportunity.
Yes, I love that. And when you think about opportunity, I think about your ability to allow that opportunity to help bridge gaps for other people.
100%.
And it's beautiful and it's perfect. And there's an area of our lives that I know you and I can talk about for days that bridges gaps for other people. It's a relationship builder. It's something that I know helps facilitate great conversation and dialogue. And you guys know where I'm going with this, even though you may not have picked up on it. It's the question we ask everyone. When I think about facilitating dialogue, I think about conversations over wine. And
What?
I know you are shocked. I know you are shocked.
Why not?
Why not? And so when I think about that for you too, I almost kind of ask it two questions. I'm doing a little twofer here when it comes to the wine conversation. So
I'm listening.
Yeah, Sid and I have this beautiful relationship where all of a sudden wine just ends up in our hands. We don't know how that happens.
I wish we could zoom out and zoom back and it's here.
And it's
I don't
here.
know why we're not drinking
it's
it right
magical,
now.
but it's so funny though too, because I feel like when we are, and it's not because it's wine induced, but I think there's something that happens when you're building a relationship with someone, when we are able to do that and we have sit down with a glass of wine
Or three.
It builds something new, right? And I love that and I love that dynamic. But the other part of that too is when you think about wine and you think about a wine that you can't live without, what is that wine, Sid?
Oddly enough, Kristie, I get a lot of anxiety. Let me tell you why.
Oh boy.
So a Pinot Noir is my blood type. Belle
Yes.
Gloss all day, every day. It's what I want. But I'm going to make this about my husband for 5 seconds.
Okay.
So you think you know someone?
Yes.
You get married, like what temperature you like it on at night? Or does he actually put the toilet seat down? Like those are things you need to know
That's very important.
before you get married.
Yes.
And sometimes they just show up one day and they've just changed. And we were like 1.5 to 2 years into marriage. And he came home one day and was like, I drink white wine now. I don't want red wine. I want white.
Oh,
It's like,
this was a new change.
but not I.
No.
So, and now, we split a bottle, but I drank more of it. But now it's my whole bottle because he's drinking the white. So I say all that to say I've been experimenting and stay with me.
Okay.
I've discovered the white Pinot Noir.
Yes. Yes, sir.
I
Yes,
didn't know
sir.
it was a thing.
Yes.
Found it from a vineyard in Willamette Valley, which we also had the pleasure of doing a whole week-long little stint, he and I.
Yes.
And it gives you all the things that you need in a white wine that I'm like sufficing him. It's a Pinot Noir, baby.
Yes.
It's still red. It's got a little blushy. So don't go buy it because there's a limited stock everywhere. So I just get it as I can.
Sir.
But it's called Left Coast, and you'll be obsessed with it.
Oh,
Locally.
I
You need it.
know that wine. I have. So fun fact, in my house, there's in the kitchen, up above where people usually put like decor above the cabinets,
Yes.
I have wine bottles.
Why would you not?
I thank you. And it's empty wine bottles of all the wines that have made an impression on my life. And there is a bottle of Left Coast up there, if I'm not mistaken. Pretty sure there is. And it's funny because, and some of you may or may not know this, I was in Willamette Valley Vineyards.
Yes.
And I had a client out there in Oregon. And while I was out there, I accidentally stumbled upon Willamette Valley Vineyards, and I've always loved Willamette Valley Vineyards, but never been there. And I accidentally became a wine club member. You know how these things go.
Whoops.
It was an accident. I don't know how it happened.
Yeah.
And with that, though, now accidentally, twice a year, I get a shipment of wine. And I love, so Pinot Noir forever, but they also tossed in a delicious white.
I love
A delicious white. And I'm just like, what is this? It's like a little magical experience.
something has changed
I
within
know,
me.
something new. But
I
it's
know.
and it's fun because the great thing that I love is having this dialogue about wine, having this dialogue about Fearlessly Made You. But really it's the relationship building, right?
100%.
I love the energy that you bring to every conversation. And, Sid, I think about for you, one kind of final little tidbit that I would love for you to share with everyone is when you think about relationship building, when you think about what that means to your life, to others' lives, and how we, of course, as always, live that fearless existence, what is just one thing that you want people to know about why that's so important?
No pressure.
I know.
This is such a good question because I have so much I want to say and so much that is important. I just think you have to own it. I think when you build relationships, own it, apologize for it, build upon it, listen, but just go for it.
Yes.
And don't be afraid to surround yourself with someone who doesn't look like you, who doesn't act like you, who doesn't love like you. That's how we grow.
I love
That's how we grow. So don't be afraid. Own it, own your story, and own maybe learning someone else's.
You have, as usual, been insightful and wonderful. I appreciate you being part of the Fearlessly Meiji podcast.
You. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. And guys, tune in next time for the next Fearlessly Meiji podcast episode.